Hello, my name is Courtney, and I hate Pride and Prejudice. In this video, I'm going to be giving you my 4 reasons why you should just give this book a skip. First of all, the writing sucks. I know, that iconic first line. Everyone knows that a man, single man, in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. Iconic. But let's get a little further into the book, and I'll read you a sentence here. Mr. Collins received and returned these felicitations with equal pleasure, and then proceeded to relate the particulars of their interview, with the result of which he trusted he had every reason to be satisfied, since the refusal which his cousin had steadfastly given him would naturally flow from her bashful modesty and the genuine delicacy of her character. Would you say that's a good sentence? The redundancy, the adjectives, the run-on sentences. The writing's bad. The writing is witty. I'll give her that. There's some witty and wry observations, but it's not funny. In fact, it's incredibly boring. Her prose can only be read with the enthusiasm of someone counting sand. That's how droll it is. There's no warmth. There's no feelings. It's supposed to be a book about love. There's no passion. Her characters, I'm gonna say it, her characters are devoid of soul. In fact, a guy had copied out her manuscript and sent it to different publishers, and only one publisher managed to recognize that in fact it was a plagiarized manuscript, and all the other ones said, ugh, that kind of sucks. In fact, the agency that represents J.K. Rowling, you know, we all think she's a good writer, right? Said it was not confident of placing this material with a publisher. That's how bad it is. That's how bad it is. Let me tell you, it's not a product of its time. I know you're gonna come with that me in the comments, because there were better books that were written around the same time. Let's think, Frankenstein, Wuthering Heights, let's talk about Middlemarch, really good. Evelina. So there are other female authors writing around this time who are writing much better books. Much better books. Better written style. Number 2. A reason that people say they love this book is because Elizabeth Bennet is such a feminist hero. She's not. On the surface, maybe she might look like it. Oh, she's marrying for love. She's not. Really, let me just talk about it. She thinks she's in control throughout the whole thing, when in fact, she's just being controlled by Darcy. Yeah, if you take a close look at this, you analyze it, you apply some literary theory, we come up with a Laconian Gaze, which I'm very fond of applying into literature, especially when it comes to arguing about whether a book is feminist or not, because it has very much to do with power and who holds the power. So the Laconian Gaze is where the power is held by the one doing the looking, and the person who is being looked upon becomes an object. They are objectified by the person glancing at them. Then that object, the person being glanced at or gazed at, is then modifying their behavior, their beliefs, their feelings in response to being looked at. That happens here. Let's recall that scene where Elizabeth finally realizes she's in love. She's at Pemberley. She's, you know, looking at all the art and stuff, and he's looking at her through the paintings, and then he physically comes and looks at her, and she thinks, as she remembered to have sometimes seen when he looked at her, it is impossible to avoid his sight. And an important part of Laconian Gaze is literally who is above one another looking down at the other, and we have Darcy literally telling Elizabeth Bennet, "You are beneath me," multiple times. So she has to adjust who she is to fit Darcy, right? Let's expand this and look at the other John Austen characters. She didn't marry Darcy for love. She married him for gratitude for what he did to her sister. And because she needed money. That's why they married. Marianne didn't end up marrying Willoughby, who actually made her feel feelings. She ended up marrying the old guy. Emma ends up marrying someone who sees her as a sister. Fanny in Mansfield Park can't marry her actual brother, so she marries someone she thinks of as her brother. Jane Austen was a bit into incest or something. I don't know. It sounds impressive to say that you're obsessed with Mr. Darcy, but he's essentially the same character as, like, Edward Cullen from Twilight or Christian Grey from 50 Shades of Grey. They're that, you know, swoon-worthy, arrogant, aloof, good-looking guys with a secret sensitive side, and they end up saving the day because they're overcome with love for the heroine. Again, you're gonna argue a product of the time! And I'm gonna rebut you with this, saying that there were men at the time who were writing more feminist literature than Jane Austen was. Gustave Flaubert wrote Madame Bovary, about a woman who was in an unsatisfactory marriage just a few years after this. And she decides to say, whatever, I'm gonna go out and live my life. And then we have Anna Karenina, again, by a male author, Leo Tolstoy, which is quite arguably a more feminist character than Elizabeth Darcy or whatever she ends up calling herself. Okay, number 3. It's essentially the same story as all those other ones. Jane Eyre, North and South. If you've read those, you've read Pride and Prejudice. Honestly. I'm not going to talk about it. I'm going to link a video I did down below that explains why they're all essentially the same thing with the same characters, with the same plot lines, and the same houses, and all that kind of stuff, you know? And lastly, number 4, because other people agree with me. I'm not alone in my opinion of saying that Pride and Prejudice sucks. Ralph Waldo Emerson recommends you commit suicide before you read Pride and Prejudice. He says, I'm at a loss to understand why people hold Miss Austen's novels at so high a rate, which seems to me vulgar in tone, sterile in artistic invention, imprisoned in the wretched conventions of English society, without genius, wit, or knowledge of the world. Never was life so pinched and so narrow. Suicide is more respectable. Then we have Winston Churchill, who makes a really good point, saying that there's a whole lot of stuff going on in the world at this time, and still she tries to write about the middle class. What calm lives they had, those people. No worries about the French Revolution or the crashing struggle of the Napoleonic Wars. Only manners controlling natural passion as far as they could, together with cultural explanations of any mischances. That's essentially what the novel is. This is one of my favorites. Mark Twain. We all love Mark Twain. He was so witty, he was so funny, he was an awesome writer. He said, every time I read Pride and Prejudice, I want to dig her up and beat her over the skull with her own shin bone. And this will be the clinching argument. This will get you all to agree with me that this is a horrible book. I'll read you the quote and then I'll tell you who said it. The work is rather too light and bright and sparkling. It wants shade. It wants to be stretched out here and there with a long chapter of sense, if it could be had. Jane Austen herself did not like this book. So why do you? Why? There's nothing good in this book. It's horrible. It's horrible. Go read something else. Go read something else. Thank you for watching.